Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Hopefully, you're with us for the second time this week, and we are thrilled to be back with you again and excited to talk about Meeting your learning community. So I saw some of you guys asking in the comments what this show is going to be about today, and we're going to be talking about social emotional learning and some ways that you can stay in touch with your students even when you're having to meet virtually. So I'll introduce myself and then ask my colleagues Brooke and Jess to introduce themselves. I'm Amy from Fried Technology, and hopefully we have met before and this is not your first show. And now Brooke.
Hey guys, I'm Brooke from Fried Technology as well, and I am excited about today's lessons. Not that I haven't been excited about the other ones, but this one I think is going to be really great.
Yeah, it's absolutely pretty cool.
I'm Jessica Powell Albright. I'm also here with Fried Technology, and I am excited to really dive into the social emotional learning part of things, since that's really what all of us are kind of at this point in the game really focused on. So we get a lot of questions from teachers about this particular topic.
All right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. Today, we're going to be talking about some different features in Meet that are going to help you with social emotional learning. And I can tell you for sure that toward the end of this short webinar today, you're going to have some of Brooke's greatest hits, tips, and tricks that she uses. And she's really on our team, the most knowledgeable, I think, about SEL. So I know you're going to enjoy hearing those from her. So if you were with us before, you have already seen this one, but we wanted to make sure that you did not miss that tile view has now changed in Google Meet. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to a Google Meet right now so that you can see what I'm talking about. Because now when you go down to the hot dogs in the bottom right-hand corner of Google Meet, you're going to have your change layout button. And we won't be able to see every single possible layout because we don't have enough people in here to do it. But you can see you have a whole bunch of different options. And what this is going to let you do is see all of your students at one time. So that's going to be pretty cool. And it's going to give you a better way to be able to look at everybody's faces. And hopefully nobody's got more than 49 kids in a class. If you do, bless you. I really hope that's just not possible, right? Because no one could do that. But if you do, hats off to you. You're a superhero. But at least you can see 49 at one time. That's pretty spectacular. So it matters to you because it helps you feel more connected to your students. I'll never forget the very first time I was ever in a video meeting. So it was way back in the day when I think we were using Skype, or I don't know. Was that the first one? There might have been. I can't remember. Yeah. I think Skype might have been the first one that I ever used personally. And, I was like, well, let's try this new technology out. It's like on the Jetsons back in the old days. I was really excited about it. And so I was having a meeting with a bunch of people on a campus. I was working in a school district. And I asked them a question about something that was a little bit controversial. And they also were not used to video meetings, and they forgot that I could see them. So they were looking at each other and like mouthing to each other, like, what should we tell her? Are we going to tell her? And it was like, I let them go on for a minute, and then I said, y'all, I can see you. I'm watching you do this right now. So why don't you just tell me whatever it is that you're talking about amongst yourselves and not to me? But it made me think, oh boy, I'm getting so much more information. If this was a phone call right now, I would not have gotten all of that information that I did by the looks on people's faces. I pretty much already had my answer.
And what's interesting is that you ask people how they're feeling, or you ask people what they're thinking, and they don't always tell you. I don't know if they're like worried to tell you what they really think or feel, but that sometimes, like you just said, you just can glean so much more information from seeing.
Yes. And there's a lot of people in the world, Jessica Albright, who cannot hide their emotions when they're on their face.
It might be me. I don't know. I'm getting better at it.
It might be Jessica because I've known her for a long time now. And if she even tries to like hide something, I'm like, what are you hiding? I can see on your face right now. There's more to that. So
zero poker face over
here. Yeah, she's got absolutely none. So if you can get her in a Google Meet, don't try it on the phone. She may be able to get by with something, but in a Google Meet, you got her.
Pressure's too great.
Right. Jess, are you going to show us questions and polls today?
Yes, I'm really excited to share this because there's a lot you can do with students if you're trying to share. Let me pull this guy up. I'm sorry. It's hard to like double task, isn't it, when you're doing this?
Yeah, it is. Okay. It's really, really challenging.
I feel like you guys can see this now. Okay,
Yeah, there we go.
I can be on here, but I'm looking at a different camera. So I'm going to turn myself off so I don't get distracted. So let's say I'm working with you guys and I really want to get some feedback. And of course I can see your camera if I'm looking in tiled view, but if I'm sharing my screen and maybe I just don't see you guys right away, I can also do something like launch a poll. So up here in the top right corner where my mouse is kind of moving around, I've got my activities panel. If I open my activities panel, I can see that I've got some options here. Now, you may not see these options in your account. These are enterprise features. So this is definitely something you want to take a look at if you have enterprise version in your district. But when I open this activities panel, I see breakout rooms, which we talked about a couple of days ago. And I also see polls and Q&A. So polls are going to let me find out what my students are thinking about a topic. When I clicked on polls, you see I have an existing poll that I pre-created before the meeting today. So Amy and Brooke, can you guys see this yet on your end?
No, we
I
don't see
can.
anything. And
In
now
fact-
I'm wondering, yeah, you probably have the same question I do, Brooke. Did you create this within the meet, like while we were waiting just now?
Yes, I'll show you how to do it. I
Okay.
just wanted to show you can have one kind of waiting if you're ready to get going with your students. They don't have to see it until you're ready. So right now I'm going to launch it. See how I have the option here to launch. I'm going to push that to Amy and Brooke, and on their end, they just get a little notification. A little green dot shows up for them that there's something to do.
I see it.
And they're going to answer the questions. And right now, I'm the only person who can see their responses. So maybe I'm asking a question about content. Maybe I'm asking a question about how people are feeling right now. I can see, as you guys can see on the screen, that I'm looking at the results. But notice I have the option right here to show everyone the results. So I'm going to do that. And then
I
it just
see 'em.
puts the same little, does it look similar to what I see on my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. It looks almost exactly the same. We don't have obviously the toggle. We don't have the delete. We don't have the in the poll, but other than that, it looks exactly the same.
There you go.
So Jess, when you click on those, like on the Snowy Mountains, does it tell you who voted for each of those?
From this view, I don't see that, but it's a great question that you're asking. So after I end the meeting, I'm going to get a spreadsheet that looks a little like, let me see if I can pull this guy over and you guys can see the responses. So this spreadsheet is what I would get after the meeting. It gets emailed to me, and I'm just going to paste that link real quick into our window here. And it looks like this. So it shows me, these are my poll results, and it names it the name of the meeting, and then it shows poll results. And then it shows which student, and these aren't the ones from the one you guys just fill out. These are from a previous poll. But you can see it shows the question and then the answer that my students gave me. So this is how I would be able to tell which students are saying what things. So
Jess, does that come after, I'm sorry, does that come after the meet is over?
Yeah, I believe it does come after the meet is over, after we end the meet.
Okay.
So if I'm doing something formative, I might want to use maybe a different tool, but if I want to get this information for later, I can look at it after the meeting is over. Yeah, and so that's the poll. So of course, how to create a poll, you just see right here, there's a button that says create poll. So let me just walk you through from the very beginning. If I clicked on the activity panel and I chose polls, I wouldn't see one that was pre-created unless I'd pre-created it, just to put that out of the way. But I would see the create a poll option, and you can see it's very simple. Type in your question, put in your answers, and then save it. You can save it and launch it later, or you can launch it right away. So if I have a follow-up question that I want to ask in the moment, I might say, cool, where's your favorite place? I can type, that would be great. This is why I pre-create these things.
So we have a really good, great question here, and it says, does the participants have to open the poll to view, or does it just automatically open?
So you guys can answer this question. You got a notification, right?
So what I actually got was a little red dot over my activity icon to let me know that there's some sort of activity going over there. So I'm going to get a little bit of a notification. It's not just going to automatically pop on my screen, but I can go over there and click to see what that notification bubble is about.
Gotcha. So I don't think I can force my students to open the poll, but like Brooke just mentioned, she gets a notification that it happened. Okay, go ahead. Do you have a question?
We have one more that says, so when you pre-create the poll and you want to use it maybe for like a bell ringer, do you have to do that once you get into the meet, and then you can save it and come back later to it, or do you have to stay in the meet?
Yeah, so it is going to have to be something you do when you launch the meet and it's live, because you can't, I don't believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I don't believe you can pre-create those things until you've launched the meeting. Right. So you're going to want to get in there first. Yep. The second feature is the Q&A. It's down here, same activities panel. Q&A. And so when I turn that on, I am not doing anything as the teacher. All I've done now is I'm activating it for students. So I'm going to turn on Q&A. And what this allows is for my students to, if they see that Q&A option, they can click on it and they can ask questions. And those questions, it's kind of like a moderated chat in some ways, because we can use the chat, we can have a conversation, but that chat can move really fast and I may not see all the questions. So by using the Q&A feature, my participants can type in a question and they can ask it. So I'm hoping one of them is doing that now. And so right now, this question is, everybody can see it. All of the classmates can see this question because notice that I have the option right here to hide it. So if I find that it's inappropriate or if it's maybe more personal and I really don't want the whole entire class to see it, I can hide it from the rest of the class. But I'm going to leave it open because what Brooke and all my other classmates theoretically could do is they can click this little upvote right here in the corner. And if you guys would both go to Brooke's question and upvote it, it allows these questions to be sorted by the most popular, which would put our upvoted question at the top. And so this kind of helps keep out students from having to type the same question over and over and over again. If Amy already asked a question and Brooke has the same question, she doesn't have to type it. She can just upvote Amy's question and it'll put it at the top of the list. So it's a way to prioritize and manage the questions that students are having during the class. I also can, like I said, I can hide these guys. And when I've answered them, this is kind of nice. When I've answered the question, I can use the check mark right here and it marks it as answered. So if I've verbally answered it, if I've shown what I've done, it answers it. And then what it allows me to do is after the meeting, just like with polls, after the meeting, I can get a spreadsheet that shows the question that was asked, who asked it, when it was asked, how many students upvoted it, if the moderator marked it as answered, if the moderator hit it, and if the moderator cleared it. Now, it also gives me the option to see if the submitter deleted it. So I think that's pretty handy. So if somebody asks a question and then immediately deletes it, it's going to be cataloged here, but it's going to show that the submitter deleted it. So I think it's pretty handy.
Yeah. Do y'all remember a long, long time ago, Google had a tool called Moderator? Yes, yes. Google Moderator has re-emerged.
It has. It's almost exactly the same. It's just asking a question. So if I want to have Q&A turned on, I can also kind of turn off the questioning for right now. Maybe I've gotten a lot of questions and I need to really address something. I can turn off the questions for a second, really address the group so that nobody is over there focused on typing a question. And instead, they're really needing to listen to the instructor. And then if I want to turn it back on, I can come over here back to Q&A and re-allow the questions. So I think those two features allow me to really get more feedback from my students. It's going to help me meet their needs in the time that they need me to meet their need versus waiting till later.
So Jess, this is from Heather. If that panel is closed, are you notified that a question has been asked?
If the panel is closed, if I close the panel, let me re-allow questions and we'll just look at that together. So I'm going to
re-allow it and let us ask you one and see what happens.
So I've closed it.
And I asked a question while you had it closed. I had typed it into the box, but my post button was grayed out.
So I don't know if you guys saw that. I got a little notification on the bottom right of my screen that said a question has been posed in the Q&A. And then also I got this little green dot on the activities panel to show me that my Q&A has had a question. And Brooke, you said you had a question ready to go and it just wouldn't let you ask it until I activated that again. Great.
Also, we have a really good question that says, can a second teacher moderate the questions? And the thing with Google Meet is that there is one host, one moderator.
Yes, whoever owns the event, whoever started the meeting or created the classroom, whoever's doing that activity, that's the host or moderator of that meeting. So that's a great suggestion, and I hope Google hears us when we say that's a great suggestion. So maybe that's something we can see in the future, but for now, one moderator, one host.
Yeah, it would be great if eventually, if you were in a Google Classroom and you were a teacher and a co-teacher in a Google Classroom, if both of those people could moderate.
Yes, absolutely would be. That's a great way to do it too, because they're designated as the co-teacher.
Yeah, right. Otherwise, yeah, I can see how that could be built in easier maybe.
Yep.
All right. Well, the next feature is so sophisticated. I don't know if y'all are going to be able to understand it or not. We'll see. So there's my screen back again, and just get ready for this. It's really earth-shattering because it is actually raising your hand. And You can see that my colleagues gave me the easiest part of this presentation today because literally, I mean, I think we're done with this section. So if you don't see it yet, it's listed as coming soon. We don't have a date on it, but that's what it looks like. And when you see it, it will just be down there in that bar. You don't have to go through any menus to get to it. It's right down there. And you might wonder what it looks like to the teacher when a student raises his or her hand. So there's what I saw when I was the teacher, and I asked Jess to raise her hand, just so you can see what that looks like. And then this is what it looks like to me when I go into the little people area right there. I get this box that opens up and I see my people with raised hands at the top. But here's the best part about it. I can just click lower all and all the hands go down, and they can't stop me. They can raise them again, but they can't stop me from lowering the hands. So I think I've really dived in depth to that feature. Did I miss anything, y'all?
Well, somebody had a great question in the chat. I just happened to see it. They said, can you tell who raised their hand first? And I don't know the answer to that, but we can practice it. We have a meet.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let me share, and you guys can take a look at.
Yeah, you share and we'll raise our hands.
Okay, I'm going to share. There we go. And now you guys, can you guys see my shared screen yet?
No, try again. All right, I think we're seeing it. Move your mouse down to the bottom so we can see the. There we go.
There we go. Okay, cool. So so go ahead, guys, and raise your hand because I'm still in teacher mode and you're still student mode. So I'm seeing over here that a student raised their hand. Great. And Amy said you just click on the people tab at the top to see my students. And it shows me that Brooke is at the top of the list. Now, it must have picked up on who did it first because Brooke is not alphabetically should not be alphabetically above Amy. So it makes me think that it did show them in order of who raised their hand first. I'm going to lower the hands and y'all try one more time and let me see which notification comes up first.
Okay, I'm going to do mine first this time and let's see if I show at the top. All right, mine's done.
Yep. So that must be what's happening here as it's putting the student who raised their hand first at the top of the list, which I think is a pretty handy feature as well.
Yeah, very handy. It's handy.
Huh. No puns.
Use that as the title someday.
Oh, man.
A handy feature.
Love it.
That's a dad joke right there, isn't it?
Yes. And so hand raising, can we clarify, is hand raising free or enterprise?
Oh gosh, you would have this question. Let me go and look at our handy chart, free or not, and see if we have added it there. And if we have not, we will get that added and we will answer that question. Devin may know, and she's in the chat today.
Free.
It's free. Okay, great. We'll get that into our chart too, y'all.
And so I think there's also a notification if the teacher is presenting content and they're screen sharing, then they are notified that they've had some sort of either probably a hand raise or some sort of question or something that's come through. You get a little ding, a little beep. It's hard to replicate that with your human voice, but you guys know what I mean.
All right. Well, are we ready to move on? I mean, I know that was so complex and deep that we could talk about it all day, but I think we might have something from Brooke next. Am I right about that?
We just might.
She's still thinking about it.
I'm not sure, but I believe that we do have something.
Okay. I see some questions in the chat about breakout rooms. We talked about that on Tuesday, guys, and that's recorded. So if you wanted to go back to the post page, and I think Devin has put the link in the chat. She might put it in again, but the link back to the page, you can watch that recording and check out all the things we talked about with breakout rooms.
Definitely.
All right, y'all let me know when you can see my screen.
We see it. Looks good.
Good. Great. So we really want to talk to you guys about meeting your social emotional learning needs of your students. And this is not just for in times right now where a lot of you are teaching virtually, but just when we're talking with our students in general. And I know that as far as being in a classroom teacher of different grade levels all the time, building a relationship with your students is really important. And especially in the times that we're in right now, understanding maybe what they're going through, getting to know them, build a relationship, and also like, how are we doing that right now? Like, how are we meeting those social emotional learning needs of our students? So some of the things that we have gone through with you already lend to this. So how are we doing that just daily? So I've come up with a list here to share with you of daily check-ins, things that you can ask your students, ways to engage them virtually with the technology that you're already using. So for example, if you're using Google Classroom, you could post one of these daily check-in style questions in Google Classroom and have them answer. Or if you're using your meeting every day with Google Meet, then you can post these just as Jess did, as a poll, as a Q&A. Maybe you just do it in the chat. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you a chance to get to know your students just as if you were having that conversation. And if we throw in the tile view also with that, or raising your hand, you're going to be able to get those same interactions just like you do when you're face to face. So here are just some of the quick suggestions. Maybe it's just personal questions like, how are you doing today? What did you do this weekend? Did anybody watch a certain show that was popular? Maybe there was a certain movie marathon on that, all the kids were probably watching. Those sort of questions really tend to open up conversation, and you get to know a lot more about your students. And especially in the virtual environment, you have a little bit more control over who takes over the most amount of time, especially if it's just in text. Did you guys ever have a student that you almost dreaded asking these sort of questions because they would just go on forever? Did you guys have anybody in your class like that?
I made an entire debate structure for my dual credit English students that graded them based on following rules because they could not let other people speak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, it happens. But, I also had learned pretty early, often in my teaching career, that you have to ask the questions. And sometimes you think you know a student by what they're putting out in their public face, like their personality, maybe their attitude, what they're giving. But sometimes when you ask them a question and they get to respond on paper and they feel like it's just between you and the teacher, you may get to know a different side of that student and understand why they're putting out what they're putting out into their public face. And so it's really important to build those questions. And it's not always a deep dive. It's sometimes just asking silly questions will help you understand your students more. Like, would you rather be a superhero or a wizard, and why? Jess, which of these would you rather be?
Well, I'm going to be a wizard.
Yeah, I'm a wizard too, because I feel like you get to wear eccentric clothing and just sit around and brew stuff and just
You don't wear eccentric clothing?
But I want to. That's one of my life goals. And I just, I got to
we've
ask
learned
my
something
mom
about
first.
Brooke.
See,
Yeah.
exactly.
Superheroes have too much
I
responsibility.
thought I was
They
the eccentric clothing person around here. I had no idea.
You are, but superheroes, I feel like they have costume changes and they got to run around. And if they're not there on time, things go wrong. I'd much rather just sit over here and I kind of am like an ed tech wizard. So I can just make things happen on this hand and just let people ooh and on. It makes me happier.
Yeah.
I don't know. See how much, it wasn't a deep question, but now you guys know way too much about me. And this one's public out there. My mom's going to watch it someday and be like, no, you're not allowed to be eccentric. So anyway, so another game that I love to play with my kids is Would You Rather. And these two, you can literally pick up these Would You Rather kids cards. There's websites. I used to do it all the time, just kind of at the end of the day, if I needed to kind of calm things down, or maybe the bus was late and we needed to wait and guys, I'm talking elementary, high school, my teachers, and I'm working with teachers, silly questions. Would you rather, I've got some on this starter form over here, really gross things. Would you rather brush your teeth with soap every day or drink sour milk?
Oh,
You will be surprised, and you will learn so many things about people that you think, if you're willing to do that, I wonder what else you're willing to do. And it makes you question what you know about people. So it really kind of gets inside of their inner thinking. Sometimes that's a scary place to be, but you'll get to know them a little bit more. Content questions, just as simple as maybe can, in one sentence, tell me what you learned yesterday. One of our learning guides, she has a great example. She calls it Don't Break the Bank. And she would make her students do summaries and tell them, hey, you only have $1.25 to spend and every word costs 10 cents. And so the kids would have to figure out how many words that they could write for their summary without breaking the bank.
That must be how they made Twitter.
Maybe don't breaking the bank. And then they gave everybody a loan, and now you can just go on and on forever.
And I wish they hadn't.
Yeah, exactly. So you can ask content questions, but you can still do them in an engaging way that gets students thinking and not just tell me 3 things you learned today. Because I bet you guys as educators, if you've ever done like a discussion board or anything like that, you're like, let me get this discussion board over with. So we don't want to do that to our students either. We want to come up with other ways to provide that. Just like using emojis for summaries. And let me show you an example of that. I have one. This is you guys can grab your copy of this document if you would like. But these little emojis here, I could put some emojis and say, what do you think our story will be about today? Or maybe I put these emojis up and at the end of my lesson, I say, now that we've talked about the Arab Spring situation today, how do these emojis relate to what we learned? So even if they kind of don't remember, they're like, oh, why would someone be angry? Why would someone be telling them to stop? Why is there a ban on cell phones? How was the government and the police involved? And that's really going to get them to think. It gives them some little like reminders, but also students speak in emojis, so they're going to like it.
Yeah,
I always talk about.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, Amy, you probably remember this. Probably 15 years ago, I either heard a TED Talk or read an article or something, and this gentleman said, he's a linguistics expert. He said, look, we're headed for a revolution of language, and in 10 years, we're going to see we're going to revert back to hieroglyphics. And I literally laughed. I'm an English teacher, and I thought that is ridiculous. That person is Looney Tunes. But y'all, you can order a pizza with an emoji now, and I think that's his prediction has come true.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
And then we also have, like, if you want to use a Google form that you put out there and you can add images in there and really kind of check Jess loves to put GIFs into Google Forms. So it's like from, what is the one that you always use from like crying cat to hysterical laughter? Like what's your stress level today? And so you can check out those examples on our blog. There's a link in this document that is linked on the slide. Down here, you can grab your copy of this document and check that out. And you can get a copy of those attendance forms. They're really great. Awesome. And then this last thought process here is, you don't want to use the same thing every day. Like you don't want to would you rather them every day or personal question them every day. So this gives you a chance to pick a few of these throughout the week so that there is some mixture. So I also love anything of the day. Maybe it's the word of the day. There's a link here to the National Geographic picture of the day. You can do inferencing skills with it or feelings, or how does this picture relate to something that's happened in your life? And then there's also the time photo of the day. Those are always really good, but teachers preview those before you post them, just because they're not always education appropriate. So go in and just preview them and just make sure that it's not going to be a trigger for any students that are in your class. I think that's pretty much on this. I just want to show one thing. Do we have time? Very little time.
We have 2 minutes though.
Okay, well, let me do it on here. If you are creating a question in Google Classroom, please remember to teach your students something really important. And that is, after the teacher has gone in to create and click on question, and the teacher puts in their question here, you can say students can reply to each other, or maybe students can edit their question, or you can turn this off. But you must teach your students to go in and answer their question over here on the far right-hand side. We do this all the time, and all of our teacher students always put it in as a class comment, their answer. So I always make sure that my students see that this is the area up here. Type your answer, that you're going to type your answer in up here and click turn in.
Brooke, you know what? We get a lot of questions from teachers saying, I don't know what the students see and I don't know how I can show them that if I can't switch over to be a student. But you know how Brooke and I and Amy do this? We just make a class and we join each other's class as a student, and then we can see the backside from a student perspective. And that way we can do things like take screenshots. So we don't do anything fancy there. We just join their class as a student.
Exactly. Do we have
That's
any
a really good
questions?
point. I never even thought about explaining that to anyone before.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
Okay.
we don't, and we have 1 minute left. So, Brooke, let's go to the last slide. We won't even have to switch
Okay,
screen
let's do it.
sharers. So, we want to remind you that on this last slide, there are a bunch of different links. You can follow our social media channels, go to our website, and you can't sign up for next time because this is the
This is
last time in this series. So, I hope that we get to see you again, and I hope you've learned a ton and enjoyed it as much as we have. But
Yeah.
I think that's a wrap.
All right.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.